Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Discover the Power of E-Discovery with Office 365. My name is Whitney Mahon, and I'm an account executive here at FMT Consultants, and I am joined by our Solution Services Manager, Zach Saltzman, and our IT Director, Wade Walker. Before we dive in, for those of you who aren't familiar with FMT, I'd like to take a few moments to give you a brief introduction of our company. Here at FMT, we have successfully completed over 1,000 projects. We have been serving clients for over 20 years now. We are Southern California's leading provider of Microsoft integrated solutions and have over 285 clients in both the United States and in Canada. And our team has significantly grown over the years with currently over 80 team members both in Northern San Diego as well as Los Angeles. At FMT, we do pride ourselves on our 5 core values: integrity, service excellence, collaboration, innovation, and passion. But why choose FMT? With the combination of talent, experience, and methodology, we are fully dedicated to the success of your company. We offer a wide array of services pertaining to ERP, CRM, SharePoint, BI, and of course, Office 365. In addition to having extremely experienced consultants, we also have a dedicated help desk that offer ongoing training and support after projects are completed. Not only do we pride ourselves on our product expertise and multiple offerings, but we have also won a handful of awards, including Best Places to Work, as well as multiple small business awards. And lastly, here are just a few of the clients that we get the privilege to work with on a daily basis. And of course, one day we hope to add your company to this list. Now I'm going to hand it over to Wade and Zach, but before I do so, if at any time during the presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the comment box. We will be monitoring it during the entire presentation, and we will address your questions at the end. Wade?
Thank you, Whitney. My name is Wade Walker, Director of IT Services at FMT. Thank you for joining us today. Our agenda today is going to start off with an overview of eDiscovery. Next will be a little bit more of a discussion into how to perform the search and security components of eDiscovery. We'll then touch on data retention and how data retention occurs. That'll be followed by Zach Saltzman providing a demo of Office 365's eDiscovery features. Then after the demo, we'll talk about a relatively new subset of features added to Office 365 eDiscovery that includes machine learning. On our next slide, which will hit the overview, is what is eDiscovery? So for those of you that aren't familiar with eDiscovery, it's a discovery or due diligence of electronic data, otherwise known as electronically stored information, acronym ESI, which includes emails, files, instant messages, and more. eDiscovery is subject to local and national rules and regulations, including the United States Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, including new Federal Rules of Civil Procedure amendments that became effective in December of last year. Do you need an eDiscovery solution? The answer is yes. You are required to preserve your ESI, your electronically stored information, if there's an expectation of litigation. During a litigation event, end users may knowingly or accidentally delete information which you do not want occurring during litigation events. Office 365's eDiscovery platform eliminates the need to manually archive or copy this information. From a statistical standpoint, contract and employment litigations are 2 of the most numerous types of litigation for all sizes of businesses, and over 50% of businesses indicate they have more than 5 lawsuits going during any 12-month period. The cost of performing eDiscovery is expensive. The Office 365 component helps reduce this cost and streamline the process. In addition, hiring external specialists or companies to work on eDiscovery is extremely expensive, which is why Microsoft is focused on enhancing their Office 365 e-discovery options. The Office 365 Compliance Center is included free with Office 365. It's a significant enhancement to the previous solution, which was known as the Exchange Compliance Management. The Office 365 Compliance Center is a built-in site collection within your existing SharePoint Online organization. With that, we're going to go to the next slide where Zach is going to discuss search and security.
Thanks, Wade. So my name is Zach Saltzman. I'm the Solution Services Manager here at FMT. And we're going to go ahead and take a look, as Wade mentioned, into search and security within Office 365 Compliance Center and eDiscovery Center. So in the past, Office 365 only supported Exchange mailbox content and more specifically emails for eDiscovery search. And actually some of the alternative enterprise archiving and eDiscovery solutions out on the market right now still only support Exchange and mailbox content to be searchable through eDiscovery. But with Office 365 Compliance Center, as Wade mentioned, it's the new feature and the upgrade to the old Exchange compliance. All important content and content types can now be searched and preserved. And this really makes sense, right? Because Office 365 brings so much efficiency with having all of the different platforms and software under one roof, so to speak. So now we have the ability to search content across not only Exchange, including emails, contacts, tasks, calendars, notes, everything you'd normally find in Outlook, but also SharePoint document libraries and OneDrive for Business sites, which are built on top of SharePoint, and even Skype messaging. So more and more companies are adopting SharePoint for hosting and storing corporate data and intellectual property, and so it really becomes critical to bring those items into the eDiscovery process as well. And the same really goes for Skype as it continues to be leveraged and used more in the business world with new offerings such as the Skype Voice that Microsoft is releasing and rolling out, and of course instant messaging, which is very popular. So with more and more content being searchable, we need the ability to filter and query only the data we're looking for, so we don't return mountains and mountains of data that we have to sift through. And this is really where the search operators and search criteria come into play. So, of course, the usual search criteria can be used, things that we're all familiar with, like sender, recipient, who the email's to and from, the subject of the email, the date it was sent or received, whether or not it has an attachment, etc. But we can also use Boolean logic and keyword query language, or KQL. So Boolean logic is also something that most of us are familiar with. It includes the use of and, not, and or operators to include or filter out words from search results. So you probably use this somewhat frequently either in Outlook searches or in a search engine when you're trying to find specific information and not just return a whole bunch of results that don't apply to you. The other search method I mentioned is the keyword query language, or KQL, and this is a bit more powerful. So a KQL query is made up of words and restrictions, and like a Boolean search, you can include or filter words from your search results, but with KQL, you also have some additional functionality. You can include or filter results based on a whole list of restrictions, being content type, author. You can use greater than or less than operators. You can also use dates and times, like some of the other search criteria, but you can also include relative day ranges in your queries, things like specifying yesterday or last week or last quarter or last year, and the list goes on and on. So it gives you a larger list of restrictions to include, so it goes beyond just a simple Boolean logic search. I think most of us can probably relate to the idea that user and company data grows extremely quickly, and being able to search across all that data efficiently is a necessity. But controlling access to that data and the ability to search it is also important. So let's go ahead and take a look at security and permissions in the Office 365 eDiscovery process. So security is separated into three primary areas. The first is access to the searchable content across the organization. So these are the actual content sources in Exchange and SharePoint, so document libraries, mailboxes, etc. The second area is access to the main eDiscovery Center. And this is a SharePoint site, as Wade had mentioned previously. And the users with access to this main site basically are orchestrating the entire eDiscovery process. The third area is access to the individual eDiscovery cases, and these individual cases are actually subsites on the eDiscovery Center. So they're subsites within SharePoint, and SharePoint-based permissions can be granted per eDiscovery case to the end users who need search or export or just view rights to specific content in that case. So you can see that each case can have a different set of permissions, as denoted by the different individual icons on the far right. And within each case, there's also multiple levels of permissions, as I mentioned, and these are based on the SharePoint model. So you can control, granular level permissions of adding information, editing information, exporting, viewing search queries and search results, etc. So you have a lot of control. So if we take a step back, number one, which is the top level content sources, and number two, which is kind of the top level eDiscovery Center, those would usually be administered by the IT department or a CIO, and possibly also by legal counsel in a larger corporation. And number three, which are the individual eDiscovery cases or subsites, those are accessible obviously by the eDiscovery administrators and legal counsel and anyone who has access to number two, but also any other end users who may require access on a case-by-case basis, depending on what the individual eDiscovery case covers. So searching and exporting content is central to eDiscovery, but we need to ensure that the source data, the Exchange mailboxes, SharePoint document libraries, OneDrive for Business sites, and Skype messaging, are preserved. If the data is not preserved, then search and export is pretty useless. And so to learn a little bit more about that, I'm going to turn the presentation back over to Wade.
Thank you, Zach. As Zach mentioned, in the search and security aspect, the data retention component is critical to the success of any type of eDiscovery process. And there are two types of data hold scenarios. One is known as litigation hold, and the other one is known as in-place hold. In a litigation hold scenario, all items are placed on hold for a specified duration or indefinitely until this hold is removed. What this means is, if an employee's data is put on litigation hold, everything within that employee's subset of data is on hold until the administrator specifies otherwise. The other type of data hold scenario is known as in-place hold. An in-place hold specifies certain aspects or components of employees' data that is placed on hold for a specific duration, again indefinitely until the hold is removed. Why would you use litigation hold or in-place hold? The main difference from a data hold scenario is, in an in-place hold scenario, you can perform different in-place hold profiles against an employee's data. So if an employee is involved in multiple investigations, the administrator would have multiple search and security criteria to place against the employee's data, hence it being in an in-place hold. From a litigation hold standpoint, since the entire subset of data is in hold, only one litigation case can be specified for a litigation hold scenario, whereas, to repeat, in an in-place hold, you can have 5 different litigation scenarios going on. And please know that these holds apply to both primary and archive mailboxes and archive data. And also, what's very critical to note is that either hold scenario is completely transparent to the end user, to the employee. So he or she is not aware that an administrator is placing a litigation hold or an in-place hold on their data. Thus, they proceed to work without knowing that the litigation aspects are ongoing. And with that, we're going to transfer back to Zach for the next slide.
Great, and I'm going to talk a little bit about in-place hold and its use for archiving, but I just wanted to add on to what Wade had said, and that the critical piece of the hold is that not only is it transparent to the user, but if you think about a scenario where either maliciously or by accident a user deletes a folder of emails or deletes a single email, they think it is gone. But with the in-place hold, it's actually in a recoverable area that they can't see, but that can be searched through the e-discovery process. So you're protecting yourself, especially when you have litigation going on, to be able to go and preserve and pull back all of that information as needed. So another great benefit of using in-place hold is for archiving old employee data, right? It goes kind of beyond just use for litigation. Some alternative solutions out there might include manual PST archiving, which I'm sure some of us do, or enterprise-level archiving solutions. But there are challenges that come along with both of those. So obviously, manual archiving is time-consuming. Enterprise archiving solutions can be costly from a licensing standpoint, and really both of those alternatives come with high storage costs, right? You have to have somewhere to save all of that data that you're retaining for old employees as there's turnover within the company. So Office 365 in-place hold allows us to preserve that content, gives us the ability to maintain and search the mailboxes and the user's OneDrive sites and content, while removing the old employee's Office 365 license in order to make it available for a new user. And that's really where the magic happens. So how can we leverage the in-place hold to do this? It's pretty simple, actually. We would create an e-discovery case like we saw back on the search and control and permission section. So we'd create an e-discovery case specifically to be used for archiving and preserving old employee data. And that's just a one-time operation to create that case. And then from there, we would add old employee mailboxes and OneDrive for Business sites to the source list and then place them under an in-place hold. Then we just remove the Office 365 licenses so that we can use them for any new users as needed. And then when we need to search for content across all of the archive data, or maybe just from a single old employee's mailbox or OneDrive site, we can easily do that during the through the e-discovery case using the search queries, criteria, and other search operators that we discussed before. So really, if you think about it, if you use in-place hold for archiving in this way, we've just eliminated the need to purchase enterprise archiving solutions, again, which can be expensive from a licensing point of view. And we've also eliminated the need to purchase any additional storage to keep this data because it's all in the cloud. Microsoft's not charging you anything extra for that. So the process is pretty quick and easy. It can be added to and incorporated in your IT offboarding checklists when you're offboarding old employees. And again, Microsoft is giving you this included in the bundle, and you can use those licenses for new users, so you don't have to continue to purchase new licenses just because you have turnover in the company. So let's go ahead and see how the e-discovery process all comes together in the Compliance Center. And we're going to use an example of patent infringement litigation in our demo of the e-discovery process. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a browser here, and we'll jump right in. All right. So we're going to start off in the Office 365 Admin Center, and this is the portal that you can log into through any browser. And we're going to go ahead and open up the Compliance Center, which is down here on the bottom left. And then we're just going to go ahead and click e-discovery in the left-hand pane. And we're going to get a list of all of our active e-discovery cases. And these are the individual e-discovery cases or subsites, as we mentioned before, under the case name window here that can have different permissions, can be scoped to different areas or different litigation cases as needed. So let's just go ahead and create a new case. Click the plus icon. Oops. Make this window a little bit bigger for us. All right. And let's just go ahead and give it a title. This is just a friendly name. We can add a description if we want to, and then you can also add a URL. You need to add a URL, and it can be anything you want. I'm going to keep it pretty basic, call it ABC Patent. And then we're going to go ahead and leave the default template options. Those don't need to be changed. And under permissions, I'm going to select to use unique permissions because I want only specific end users to have access to this site. I don't want it to inherit any permissions from the parent site. And then I'm also going to select to use the top link bar from the parent site just to make navigation a little bit easier, which we'll take a look at in a moment. And then I just click the Create button. So pretty easy to create a new eDiscovery case. And since we chose to use unique permissions for this site, we're going to be taken to the new eDiscovery case site to set up the groups. So by default, there's going to be 3 groups that it creates: a visitors group, a members group, and an owners group. And if you look off to the left, there's a little summary of exactly what permissions those users are going to have. Basically, it's read permissions for the visitors, contribute permissions for the members, and full control for the owners. So I'm going to go ahead and add some users in here. Go ahead and add Alan to the visitors group. We'll go ahead and add Karen to the members group. And as you can see here, I'm logged in with the CIE administrator, and it's automatically placing me in both the members and the owners group, which makes sense because I want permissions to the site that I just created. I'll go ahead and click OK once I'm satisfied with the permissions that I've added. And now we're taken to the home page of our eDiscovery case. And there's 2 main sections that this homepage is broken up into. The top section, Identify and Hold, is where we're going to create eDiscovery sets and add sources. And the sources, again, are individual Exchange mailboxes, users, OneDrive for Business sites, or SharePoint document libraries. The bottom half is Search and Export, and here's where we're going to be able to create our search queries and actually filter and return specific information that we're looking for based on this particular patent infringement case. And if you look off to the right, we have a status area for each of these 2 sections. So on the top, we're going to be able to see how many sources we've added to a set, whether or not they're on hold, whether or not there's any errors or any failures. And similar for the export status, we're going to be able to see if any of the search results have been exported and downloaded, and if there's been any failures related to those exports. So let's go ahead and add some content to the case. So under eDiscovery Sets at the top, I'm just going to click New Item. And we'll go ahead and create a new eDiscovery set. And for this patent infringement case, we want to search the sales team mailboxes. So that's what I'll call my eDiscovery set name. And then I simply click on Add and Manage Sources to add any Exchange mailboxes that I'd like to search. So again, we'll just enter in the names of the individuals that we would like to add. So we'll go ahead and add Ty, and we'll add Karen. They're both, Karen leads the sales team, and she reports into Ty. So we want to have both of those individuals added to this case so that we can search their data. Go ahead and click OK. And then I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And you can see that they're added in here as well. Now, before I click Save, down at the bottom part of the screen under In-Place Hold is where you can enable or disable the In-Place Hold. Generally, you'd want to enable it so that you retain the data and preserve the data in the way that we spoke about before. But for this demo, I'm going to leave it disabled just because I don't want to bore you guys waiting around for 5 to 10 minutes for it to actually process. Granted, though, if you add a bunch of different sources and put them under in-place hold, it still only takes about 5 or 10 minutes to add all those to a hold, which is pretty nice. It's pretty fast and scalable as well. So I'll click Save. And then if you look off to the right, you can see the in-place hold status, and we have 2 sources now which are not on hold. All right, so now that we've got some content added, a couple of mailboxes, let's go ahead and create and run some queries and pull some data. So on the bottom half of the screen, I'll click New Item under Queries. And it's going to be a similar workflow as before. We need to select a name for this particular query. So I'll just call this one Patent Infringement. And then we need to add our query. And here's where you can use the Boolean logic or the KQL type queries to filter your data. So let's go ahead and use some Boolean logic. I'm going to enter in patent or infringement. And this is going to be a pretty broad search because it's going to return content that either includes the word patent or the word infringement. If we did an and, obviously they would both words would have to be in the content. So we'll start broad, and if we need to narrow it down, we can go ahead and do that later on. You can specify any other kind of basic criteria over here. You can also click the advanced query options to get more in depth on restricting and filtering your data. Below the query window, it's going to show our sources. It's automatically going to pull all the sources that we specified in the previous step, but you can also modify that query scope by clicking this link. And you'll be presented with 4 different options. So in this case, I'm going to click on Select Sources, and let's just go ahead and return items from Karen's mailbox. I click OK. Oh, just try that one more time here. All right, there we go. So now you can see that it's only going to search against Karen's mailbox. So we have our query, we have our sources set, and I'm going to go ahead and click the search button off to the right here. And while it's searching, oh, there we go. And so it's returned about 4 results as it shows here. So we can preview the results, the recipient, the sender, the date. We can get a little bit more information if we roll over these individual email items. You can see the subject, the size. What's also nice is right from the eDiscovery case, I can click on any of these emails and actually view the content with just one click. So we can see the email sent from David to Karen asking or providing the new specs for this particular washer and dryer combo. And you can see here in the second sentence, David says this new design is moving away from the current design that has some patent infringement issues. So we can understand why this item was returned based on our search. So it's really nice to be able to dig in and drill down exactly to what you need very quickly from there. If you look on the left, you can use these boxes here to further filter your results. So if you had hundreds of results and I just wanted to see emails, I could check the email box and only be presented with those email results. All right, so I want to go ahead and save this query. Click Save at the bottom. That just takes a moment. If I close out of it then, you can see down below that we've got our search query that we just created here. So up on the top, we've got our eDiscovery set, which has the actual content, and down below, we've got the search query and the filter that we just created to return specific results. So let's go back into that search query and let's look at exporting some of the content. So as you can see, it saved all of our information here, the name and the query, the sources, etc. And now I can click Export so that we can actually get this data out of the eDiscovery Center into a usable form. So we have a few basic options on the export window. I would always recommend that you click the Remove Duplicate Exchange Content. There may be a few cases when you don't want to do that, but in general, to make your downloads smaller and keep your exports a little bit more manageable, it doesn't make sense to include duplicate content. There's a couple other options if you're working with SharePoint documents as well. It'll give you an estimated number of items and an estimated size so you can have an idea of what you're downloading, and it'll show you a summary of your query. And we'll just go ahead and click OK. And now we're on the export download screen, which is going to allow us to actually results or just download a report of the results. So we're interested in the emails, you know, the good stuff. So let's go ahead and click the download results button. And this is going to launch a simple click to run application. And once that click to run application finishes, which literally just takes about 2 seconds, we're going to be presented with the eDiscovery Download Manager. Oops, let me bring that back here. And basically, we just need to specify a folder to export the data to. So on the desktop here, I'm just going to create a folder called Exported Content. I'll go ahead and click OK. It's going to ask us to re-authenticate, which is nice because we want to make sure that only allowed individuals are getting this content and downloading this content. So I'll go ahead and enter in my username and password. And down under the status, we can kind of follow the steps that it's going through. So now it's downloading, and this will go pretty quickly because there's only about 300 or 400 kilobytes of data. All right, and now it's showing download complete. So we'll go ahead and click on the hyperlink here to open up the folder with our exported data. So it creates a couple of files in a folder structure. It's going to include a couple of CSV files that just have a summary of what was exported, if there was any errors, and similar content within the reports folder, what was exported and were there any errors with that export. But the good stuff is in the Exchange folder. And here we can see that we're presented with a single PST file. So based on all of the search results that we asked to be exported, it will all come down in a single PST file, which is really nice. We can distribute that file, to C-level executives, to legal counsel. It can be used, for trial purposes, but it's all in one place and easy to use and open in Outlook. All you need is an Outlook client to view that data. And once you open it in Outlook, you're going to be able to view all of the properties and the metadata surrounding each of those different items. So I'm going to go ahead and close out that folder, and we'll close the eDiscovery Download Manager since we've got our results exported, and I'll close the Export Download window as well. All right, so again, this is just going to show us kind of an overview of the export. It was an export of the patent infringement query. The download's complete, and it just gives us a little bit more information there. If I click back on the icon in the upper left-hand corner, it's going to take us back to the home page. So here, if we wanted to place our content under hold at this point, we could just go back into the eDiscovery set, and then we could choose Enable In-Place Hold and save. And it may take a second to process that. And then here it's switched from 2 sources which were not on hold to 2 processing. So in about 10 minutes, those will switch to 2 sources that will be on hold, that if we come back and look, we'll see that change. So you can see how the site can be used to add content, to search for that content, and also to export that content, and it's pretty easy to do. So with user and company data, obviously, as I mentioned, growing at exponential rates, it can be helpful to also have some additional advanced features to aid in filtering our data. In our example, we had a pretty small subset, and we only returned about 4 items. But if you're talking about a larger company or more users or a real-world scenario, there's going to be a lot more data. And so there's some advanced features that can aid us in getting to the data we need more quickly and filtering data more precisely. And Wade's going to talk about some of those new exciting features in Office 365.
Thank you, Zach, and thank you for that great demo. Approximately a year ago, Microsoft acquired a company by the name of Equivio that added some advanced eDiscovery features known as machine learning. These features are available in the Office 365 E5 license, and it includes technology from Equivio that is court-approved machine learning for eDiscovery searches such as the ones that Zach just described. And this encompasses the platform of products that we've been mentioning: Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive for Business, and Skype. These machine learning techniques include topics such as text analytics, predictive coding, near duplicate detection, and more. And I'll do a quick deep dive into them, and then if there's any questions at the end, we can discuss them at the end or after this webinar. Predictive coding trains the system to learn about the relevance and non-relevance of documents. Related to predictive coding is a result that's called review to recall ratio. What ends up happening is by reviewing a certain percentage of documents, there is a certain percentage of finding relevant files, which is known as the recall ratio. So the number of relevant files in the case that will be relevant to this eDiscovery litigation instance. In addition, from Equivio, they include a feature that is near duplicate detection, which looks for redundant information and processes that so that the results are streamlined. This includes looking at email thread analysis. For example, all of us send emails and there's a whole email dialogue. The near duplicate detection will have the last of the email threads or any of the email topics that went off thread that contain new items, but it will eliminate the duplicate items. So when the administrator or legal counsel is analyzing the results, they're not looking through multiple duplicates. In addition, there is a feature called Document Themes, which groups related documents together to enable the reviewing of these documents in the context of the theme. As Zach mentioned in his demos, this machine learning can also be exported and then provided to legal counsel and any executives that need to see this information. This is the future of where eDiscovery is going in Office 365. And if you would like to have any more discussions with us to discuss machine learning, we're available at the end of this webinar or by our contact information. And with that, we're going to segue into the Q&A to answer any questions that we may have received during this webinar. Whitney, do we have any questions from the attendees?
Nothing yet, but we can keep it open for a few more minutes. If anyone has any questions, we also recorded this session, and we will be able to share that to all the attendees. You can share it with your staff, and if you have any other follow-up questions, you can always feel free to reach out to your account manager as well.
Well, we'd like to thank everybody for attending today's meetings. We don't have any questions as of yet, but if we get them, we'll respond to the requesters. So thank you for attending. Thank you to Zach for presenting in the demo, and Whitney, thank you for bringing the aspects of the FMT and how FMT can help your business. And with that, we'll sign off. Everybody have a good rest of your day.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.